What is going on, everybody? What is going on? It is Darion. We are in the building for another weekly sports podcast of the Las Vegas Raiders. I am your host, Darion. And y'all know my co host at the bottom. Y'all know him, Eli. And y'all definitely know Enrique from the Spotlight Sports Network.
What up,
What is
y'all?
going on, everybody? How y'all doing today?
Going good, man. Going all good.
Yeah, just living the dream, man. Still down here. They're starting to open up South Carolina little by little. So, it's kind of spooky, but, it's actually seeing more and more people walking around. It's kind of weird, but, it's a good sign, I guess, for things to come.
It's a good sign for a lot of cities. Honestly, there's a lot of good signs going on. Open it up. I think in Philly or New York, I think we have another 30 days of quarantine here. So hopefully by the end of May or in June, we can open back up and we could probably get back to normal in some cases. But how was your weekend? I know Enrique did a Raiders show with me over the weekend, but Eli, how was your weekend and what Raiders news did you hear?
Well, I got to the beach, which was pretty fantastic. The weather's been wonderful down here. Usually here in South Carolina in Hilton Head, it's in like the 80s around now, but it's been kind of in the low 80s, high 70s. I hate to rub it in, but not a cloud in the sky. So I did some beach time, did some barbecuing. And just pretty much hearing some of the rumblings around the NFL as far as, projections on potentials for what can happen if coronavirus delays things into the season. I know Peter King, I think, was discussing some potentials for the schedule was made so that it could actually be flip-flopped, so the first few games can actually be added to the end of the schedule very easily so that the schedule can go into January, start in October, et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that was pretty interesting. I believe it was Peter King, CBS Sports, was discussing that. And I know that he had some discussions with Fauci as well on some issues and some concerns. So hopefully we don't have to worry about that and things kind of start getting better across the board. We find a cure and everything's fine by summer. How about you, Enrique?
My weekend going pretty good. Like what Darian said, we did a broadcast on Saturday, and on Sunday, we were watching Money in the Bank. So this weekend went out pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good because Saturday we did the fight. We did the UFC fight on the Sports Network channel, and we did WWE Money in the Bank. So that was pretty. That was pretty interesting to do. Wasn't much Raiders talk going on around that time. But I come up Monday and we find topics that's a lot of people probably interested in probably talk about. So we go that I don't know if y'all got the list down because I did send it to y'all, but we're gonna just go straight from the top. We just go straight down and get this done and over with. So the first topic of the day, Raider Nation, what's going on, Chap? I know that's Chap that's on the Spotlight Raiders Talk Facebook, but we're gonna get into the first topic of the day, and that first topic is 5 Las Vegas Raiders who are in a make or break years. Now, this is according to JustBlogBaby.com saying that they do have high expectations for the Las Vegas Raiders heading into 2020 campaign with 5 guys entering the make or break years. So those make or break years, those players, the first one they're gonna go off is Derek Carr, and I'm gonna just say a little bit about what it said here. It says everyone have a perspective on how good Derek Carr is, but one thing they cannot argue that he is not winning games. Carr is a solid quarterback that has been dealt with unfair hands at times with a different offensive coordinators and the lack of weapons. A couple of injuries that held them back from time, but the time to win is now for Derek Carr. They said whether you are a Carr fan or not, it cannot be argued that this is likely a make or break year for him. It seems like John Gruden likes Carr a lot despite the national media says, but if the Raiders have another losing season and Carr is not to produce at a high level, it is likely that the Raiders will look elsewhere for a quarterback. How do y'all feel? How y'all feel about that? Enrique or Eli, which one of y'all want to go first? It doesn't matter to me.
Um, th-
We can go up top first.
All right, Enrique, you got it, man.
that topic about Derek Carr, it's pretty fair because for the past 2 years, Derek Carr hasn't been doing very well. Like the Raiders have been losing a lot of games with not many good receivers, not that good of a defense. And this year is the year that Derek Carr could prove all the haters wrong, that Derek Carr could win games. Now they got all these wide receivers for him. They got Henry Ruggs, Lynn Bowden, Brian Edwards, and the rest of them boys. The offensive line is going to help Derek Carr. And I believe Derek Carr will be, once again, the 2016 MVP candidate, Derek Carr.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think that even the people that are against Carr, everybody deep down really does hope that he performs the way he has shown he can perform when he's surrounded by, quality offensive talent at the wide receiver position. We can go ahead and argue: is he? Derek Carr is not an upper echelon quarterback. He doesn't have to be an upper echelon quarterback. John Gruden wants to run the ball effectively and a lot. So I think that if Derek Carr can continue to be accurate with his throws, with some wide receivers that are now more explosive and that can take some of these smaller slants to the house or just further and make this offense more dynamic, you're going to see that this offense is going to put up more points. And at the end of the day, the offense controlled the clock. They were in the top, I believe, top 6 in time of possession, and they could, go the length of the field. They were in the top, I think, 10 or so in yards. So that they can move the ball. Derek Carr can move the ball. That he is accurate from a short to medium distance. That's what he's going to be throwing. I think that with these new wide receivers, Derek Carr is going to perform much better. And everyone who is doubting him can at least say, Derek Carr is in the playoffs this year.
And I have to say this. I understand that we lost games last year, but I understand it might be a make or break year for him just due to the fact that he's he's in that year where he's supposed to be making that big money for us. But most some of them games that he didn't lose for us last year, a lot of that came from our defensive side where we just could not get a stop on the opposite side. Derek Carr put us in position to score, to kick a field goal, or put us in some type of red zone territory, and we just couldn't punch it in. But when it comes down to it, our defense is another reason. We just can't blame Carr, but I think it is a make or break year. Knowing that we did go out and did what we did in the draft to help him get weapons. So I think it is a make or break year with him. But you got to think about it too. Understand he been under this would be his 3rd year under Gruden's offense. Mind you, he still had different offensive coordinators throughout his whole career, so that could definitely be a play too. But you don't need like Eli said, you don't need an upper echelon quarterback. A lot of upper echelon quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. The only real one that won one lately was Patrick Mahomes. He's one of those upper echelon quarterbacks, but other than that, you haven't really seen really upper echelon quarterbacks win the Super Bowl. Like people say, oh, Tom Brady is upper echelon, but if you look at him statistically in the last couple of years, he wasn't upper echelon. So.
And also, I don't want to, this is one of the most incendiary topics, Derek Carr. Twitter has just been a mess with all the Derek Carr stuff. And it's really bumming me out. But just real quick, you mentioned Mahomes, who is maybe the best player in the NFL, but certainly probably one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback. You look at Mahomes and you look at some other quarterbacks that have won, Tom Brady, you're talking about winning Super Bowls. Look at these teams and how they were built before these quarterbacks even came into the fold.
Through the draft.
Yeah. The Kansas City Chiefs without Mahomes is still probably the best team in the AFC West before he even plays. Without, if they don't get rid of Alex Smith, they're still probably the top team in the AFC West. You look at the Patriots, they were, before with Bledsoe, they were already a playoff team and they were already making a push for the Super Bowl. So, you look at these teams that, already have talent around them. They just happen to get a good quarterback. Same thing with the Green Bay Packers. They drafted Rodgers, but they already had a nucleus with, and a winning culture and a winning team with Brett Favre. So all these quarterbacks, it's not like these teams have all of a sudden been like, all right, well, we need a better quarterback. Let's go get this quarterback. And then all of a sudden they're playoff teams. It doesn't happen that way. You have to have a good team around your quarterback, and then the quarterback performs well around it.
Said it right on the money. You said it right on the money. So, Derek Carr has been the topic of the offseason, but let's get into the next person that has to have a the make or break year. And they saying wide receiver Tyrell Williams. Now they're saying that because Tyrell Williams started off hot last season, but once the injury bug hit, his production dropped drastically. Williams was forced to in position to be the wide receiver one team from last year, but he's never really been a number one receiver on any team. Even when he was with the Chargers, he wasn't a number one. But they said he'll get moved back to wide receiver 2 in 2020 when Henry Ruggs comes in. Now they're saying that Williams recorded 651 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2019. Although they're not bad numbers, but they're not going to be enough what he's getting paid. The Raiders have brought in multiple receivers in this draft this year, along with Hunter Renfrow and Zay Jones in the trade last year. And so the pressure is on Williams to perform in a big way in 2020. I couldn't agree more. I think this is a make or break year for Tyrell Williams. He has to stay healthy to be on the field.
Well, I'd like to go first on this one, if I will. Due to all the receivers that we drafted, this is a wake-up call for Tyrell Williams. Tyrell Williams needs to show up and get ready for this season, because this is what I could say the year that all our young talent can. Oh damn, what's it called? This is the year that all the Williams we can see all of them produce, and they'll get better. So that's why I say that this is the year Tyrell Williams needs to step up big time.
I agree, and honestly, I think that if he doesn't, he very well may take a seat. And depending on how early they find out how good these young receivers can perform, he may be released, because I don't think that they're on the hook for any money if he is released, if I'm not mistaken. I do think that Williams kind of gets a bad rap. He was injured. I do think that if he can continue to play the way he played in the first few games of the season, I mean, let's be honest. We don't know if Ruggs is going to be able to step right in and become a wide receiver 1. I do 100% think he's going to be an effective offensive threat for the Raiders in his first year. But I don't know if he can go ahead and step in and be an Antonio Brown or even a Amari Cooper, and that's something we can talk about later. But if Williams can step up, that's going to make this wide receiver group something really special, I think. So if he can do that, that's great. If not, he might be on the way out the door.
And I have to say that because of the draft, Brian Edwards. So he could be replaced this year, even if he doesn't produce. He has to stay healthy to be on the field, because he did start out great with us in the beginning of the year, and then injuries just killed him. So that's why we had to get so much wide receiver depth at that position, because we were loaded with injuries. And even with Zay Jones, knowing that Zay Jones didn't really play much last year, I think we should keep him on the roster just because he's a playmaker as well. If you look at his Buffalo Bills highlights, where you could go on NFL League Pass and you got it to the end of the month to get a complimentary free pass just to promote that as well. Go look at the stats, or even go to Watts Raider. Watts Raider is another Raider Nation. He said why Zay Jones fits the offense. He breaks it down on why Zay Jones fit this offense. So Tyrell Williams could be gone. He could be gone by the end of the year if he doesn't make his production better, because he's getting paid and he's not putting up what he's putting up. But if he's like Presidential Trill said, if he stays healthy, he'll be fine. But if Brian Edwards outplays Tyrell Williams, then Tyrell Williams is in trouble, period.
I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, so we could get to the next person. And this person has been talked about a lot, and that's Gabe Jackson. So they say the majority of the people believe that Gabe Jackson will not be a part of the Raiders this season, but he has not been dealt with, and it seems like the coaching staff found put a font on him on some interviews this last offseason. Like Carlton Jackson is a 2014 draft pick and one of the veterans on this roster, but the team bring in talent at guard in the 2020 season, in which is John Simpson from Clemson. So that's another young talent. So they say if Jackson is healthy, he could play at an elite level, but unfortunately, Jackson has not been healthy as of late. Did not play great on the field last year, and his replacement played well in his place last season. But it has been proven that Jackson can be replaced, but it does not happen before the season. It could happen if he doesn't. It can happen during the season if he does not produce. How y'all feel about Gabe Jackson? How y'all
Eli,
feel about
I'll
this
let
whole
you go
situation?
first about this one.
Go ahead, Enrique. Oh, Eli, you can take it.
I'm torn about this. We've talked about Gabe Jackson. I really was confident that he was going to be a part of the Raiders' offensive line. And the reason why I really do think that is the more and more that the season kind of gets closer and things aren't kind of solidified on when OTAs are going to start and when camps are going to start, any sort of cohesive offensive line or any position group, to be honest with you, any type of cohesion you can keep from the year before, who's familiar with the offense, who's familiar with the coaching staff and what we want to do, I think that that's a plus. And you see that through in the quarterback room, and you see that in the offensive line, and you see that in the the running back room as well. So I kind of think that the closer we get to the season, if they haven't already gotten rid of him, and they are excited about, or they're cautious about how their offensive line is going to perform, I think that they're going to continue to keep him. But long story short, he does need to perform because he does get paid an awful lot for somebody that potentially could not perform well. I guess if that makes any sense. Enrique, go ahead.
If you haven't saw my video at Spotlight Sports Network yet talking about John Simpson, I said that I loved that pick, that it would add depth on protecting Derek Carr, and that's what I'm about to say right now. John Simpson and Gabe Jackson, I believe that would be a really good duo protecting Derek Carr on the offensive line. Now, with the rest of the guards, this is a position where everyone needs to go and God, why am I okay? Let me start over.
It's more like a position battle than anything.
That's what I was going to say. Yes.
And
So,
also, don't forget too, like Denzel Good and Incognito didn't play the first 4 games of last year, or for the first 2 games, or something like that. I think it was maybe the first 2 games. So we had an offensive line that was kind of put together, and Denzel Good's re-signed as well. So some people think that he can just automatically slide into that spot as well to take over for Gabe Jackson. But again, if he can play at a high level, he's very useful, and that is a killer offensive line. The question is if.
And I have to agree with Gabe Jackson not being healthy as well, because it's going to be a position battle. It's going to be a position battle on both, knowing that Incognito is getting up there in age. We don't know when he's going to retire, and then with Gabe Jackson, he's getting paid a ton of money to be sitting on the bench because he's injured. Understand injuries happen, but sometimes you just got to restructure your contract. And that's why I was kind of happy with Rodney Hudson when he did that. When he restructured his contract just to help out in cap space, that tells you loyalty to the football team. But at the same time, Gabe Jackson was one of our best linemen until he didn't really produce much. So I could kind of see him being a make or break year for him because Denzel Good is there. And then John Simpson just came into the draft. So that's another thing. So it's possibility that he could be gone. I wouldn't want him to be gone, but Simpson. But they saying Simpson together with Incognito, which is not a bad combination at all. All right, so they go to the defensive side of things, and the make or break year, I think we all know where this is going, is LaMarcus Joyner, safety for the Raiders. So LaMarcus Joyner was brought in last season to make a big impact on the defense. Unfortunately for the Raiders, he failed to do that. The team has not found a way to use Joyner yet. If they cannot in 2020, they'll likely not give him another chance in 2021. Now, Joyner has brought in a big contract considering how well he produced for the Los Angeles Rams, but the kind of success did not transfer over where he put on that silver and black. Hopefully, Joyner can get back on track for the Raiders in Las Vegas, as a secondary is going to be crucial if they want to do anything of substance in 2020. How do y'all feel about LaMarcus Joyner? Is this a make or break year for him?
Well, let me tell you this. Guess who's back? Jonathan Abram is coming back from injury, so LaMarcus Joyner has to suit up and ready to play, because if he goes down again, Jonathan Abram is going to take his position, and you never know that if LaMarcus Joyner doesn't play well, he could be cut. You never know what's going to happen, which is why I agree that this is a make or break year for LaMarcus Joyner.
I agree that it's make or break for Joyner. If he doesn't produce this year, somewhere in the defensive backfield, he's as good as gone. The good thing that I will say I've heard is talking to the defensive backs coach for the Raiders. I believe it was Silver and Black. One of their podcasts, I forget exactly where it was, but apparently they talked to him on their in an interview, and he said that Joyner will in fact be cross-trained as a safety as well this year, so that he might be able to take some more snaps as a safety if A, it's not working out for him at the nickel corner, or B, Amik Robertson comes in and overperforms and pretty much takes that spot from him. And Demarius Randall can also play inside as well. So that's at least something that gives me some hope that he's going to be, whether it's at the slot corner or somewhere in the defensive backfield, he's going to be able to contribute, because he did have some of his better years at safety. I think a lot of people were talking about moving him over there. So that's good news that they're at least saying, hey, he's getting some training there so that he can move over to safety if need be. So I think that he needs to do something somewhere, or else he's gone.
So, me personally, I don't think it's a make or break year for LaMarcus Joyner, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I feel like Paul Guttner don't have no place for LaMarcus Joyner. I think it's the scheme. And I think trying to put him at safety, knowing that we did sign Demarius Randall, and now Abram is coming back, and then we have Jeff Heath. It's going to be a lot of position battles going into training camp. So I don't think it's a make or break year for him. I just feel like he needs to improve from last year to this year. And I feel like Paul Guttner's scheme doesn't fit LaMarcus Joyner in some instance. I think what LaMarcus Joyner need to do, they need to put him in a little bit of a freestyle and let him play how he played. If you go look at the Rams footage when he played with the Rams, he's not a slot corner guy. He's not. So putting him in a slot corner, it makes him uncomfortable. He played outside sometimes, and sometimes he plays safety where he's comfortable at. So Paul Guttner got to go with the strength of need. Not strength of need, but the player's strength instead of what the coach think he should play. Because sometimes when you put a player in a place that he's not comfortable with, he's not going to succeed. So Paul Guttner is going to have to do some different type of scheming, because now you're bringing swag with these corners coming in the draft. Amik Robinson is definitely coming with swag. Like Damon Arnett is going to come with swag. They're going to come and hit. So you're going to have to put Joyner somewhere in that instance, and Demarius Randall is going to be one of those veterans to help off that back end. So, I mean, I don't think it's make or break, but I feel like if he's put in the right position, he will succeed.
I think that he's the X factor, more or less, of this. Him and Abram playing to the ability that we thought that they had. If Abram can play like a first-round pick and be a plug-and-play strong safety, and Joyner can play close to the level that the Raiders thought he could play in the slot or in the safety, wherever he plays, I think that changes the whole dynamic of this defense. And now we're looking at a defense that can be, a good defense, a solid to good defense.
Well, the defense has to impress John Gruden, because, like you said, Darren, there's going to be a lot of position battles for this team, and see who is the the best in each position, because you know what they say, like you step up or get off. So this is why I say yes, this is a mega break here for Lamarcus Joyner.
And last but not least, I think me and Eli talked about this guy before, and that is Arden Key. That's what they said is a make or break year. We said this so many times about Arden Key. So Arden Key has a lackluster rookie year in 2018, but he showed a ton of promise and was expected to be the key player for this defense for years to come. Key only recorded one sack of his rookie campaign. It only got to the quarterback often, and he couldn't find a way to finish his rush. And they thought that he could be ending up to be a great player for the Raiders. But unfortunately, Key injury cut his season short in 2019 after he started to show some improvement at the time. The coaching staff was already stating that they need to get more from him, and the Raiders have started to develop a young, strong pass rush. And if Arden Key does not improve himself in 2020, he may not be a part of the solution moving forward. So, how do y'all feel about Arden Key, being a make or break year for him?
I think this is a make or break training camp for him. You can definitely see that the Raiders aren't quite still there with their pass rush yet. The whole Yannick Ngakoue, the rumors around Clowney, I don't think that they're going to sign Jadeveon Clowney. I think it's too much money. But the fact that you're hearing these things over and over again really means that they're not putting all their eggs in the basket and thinking that all of a sudden Clelin Ferrell is going to get 8 sacks next year and Mad Max is going to get, 10 to 12 sacks, definitely. And, don't forget Mayoa had 7 sacks and was a force for the beginning of the year as well. So I don't think that they're really done yet on the defensive line. And Arden Key, if he doesn't perform, he's not going to see any snaps and he's not going to make it through camp. I haven't seen anything from that player that makes me believe that he can make a breakout. But again, that's just me. Enrique, what do you think?
Honestly, I don't see Arden Key playing this season at all. Looking at how many defensive ends we signed this season, like we got guys like Malik Collins, and we still got these defensive ends like Mad Max Crosby and Clelin Ferrell right there. So if we're talking about Key, I don't think he's going to play this season at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think that the writing is on the wall. He didn't play all that much towards the end of the year either. He's certainly not made any sort of impact. This might be another one of those picks where they kind of let him fade into the ether. So, but maybe he gets one last chance, but he's certainly not going to be back anytime soon if he can't go ahead and show out in camp.
Yeah, this is a make or break year for Arden Key. I've been saying this for the longest now, and the reason why I say that is because all the acquisitions that we went and got out, in the offseason and in the draft to help this defensive line. So Arden Key might be looking from the outside looking in, because if he don't show up in training camp and he don't show that he's improved, he's going to be off this team. Mind you, if you look at it, every single position has been upgraded with the Raiders this year when it comes to free agency or it comes with the draft. Every position has been upgraded. Every position has depth. And we have almost 100 players going into training camp. So if you look at it, we have no choice at all. RK, you gotta ball out. You gotta ball out, because if Malik Collins or Carl Nassib or Max Crosby or Clelin Ferrell, mind you did play DN. I think RK played DN, right, y'all?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played DN, so he's gonna have to improve, because if he doesn't fit the Paul Guttner's defense and he doesn't fit that rotation, then he's gonna be out the door. I mind you, Arden Key was one of our top picks that we got him a few years back, but he has not shown anything. 1 sack. That's not enough. And you can't really get to the quarterback. That's not enough. So with that being said, Arden Key, it is a make or break year for you. Period.
Yeah.
All right. So the next topic that I do have on hand, and this is an interesting topic. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about former Raiders, but they saying that Henry Ruggs III can break Amari Cooper's Raiders rookie records. Now it's saying that that Henry Ruggs can break his records, knowing that the rookie had 72 passes for 1,070 yards, setting the franchise rookie records in both categories. From there, Cooper was named back-to-back Pro Bowls, establishing himself as a better young wideout in football. The arrival of John Gruden derailed Cooper's time in Oakland, but the potential contract demands that the couple had the tendency to rack up drops, spoiling the relationship between the two. Now, entering the 2020 draft, the Raiders had another young, dynamic wide receiver of Alabama, who they took in the first round with the number 12 overall pick in Henry Ruggs. But the fastest wideout in the draft class, but his skill set was way beyond someone just who could beat in a foot race. So, me personally, do y'all think that Henry Ruggs can break Amari Cooper's record, which I think he can, in my personal opinion? How y'all feel about that?
It'll be a close one, really close one, because don't forget he's not the only receiver that we drafted. We also got Lynn Bowden, Brian Edwards, and we got Terrell Williams, who's going to be coming back stronger, I believe. And look at Amari Cooper's rookie stats. I have it right here, 1,070 yards, and I believe that Henry Ruggs could go over that because Derek Carr knows Henry Ruggs is a really fast receiver. He wants to give the ball to him, in my opinion, which is why I say yes. Henry Ruggs will break Amari Cooper's records.
I'm going to respectfully disagree that he's going to break the numerical records, but I think that Henry Ruggs is still going to have an extreme impact and may have a better rookie season to the people watching the actual team. And what I mean by that is I can see, instead of 72 catches and 1,000 yards, I could see him maybe grabbing, 55, 60 passes for not over 1,000 yards, but maybe he has 4 or 5 huge plays that, break the game wide open. And maybe he has a couple reverses that he scores on and a kick return and just his presence on the field makes the Raiders offense that more dangerous and opens it up for everybody else. So I don't think that he's going to, have better numbers than Amari Cooper, but I think he's going to have a similar, if not bigger, impact on the Raiders offense than Amari Cooper did when he was a Raider.
Now, let me say this. If Henry Ruggs does not break the record, there's going to be good reasons why he didn't break the record because let's be real, Brian Edwards and Lynn Bowden are going to want the ball as well. Like it cannot be a one-man show. Oh, give the ball to Henry Ruggs all the time. It cannot be that way. So if Henry Ruggs ain't going to break the record, then that's why.
Yeah, and again, I think that that's part of it as well, right? There's going to be when Amari Cooper was drafted, and I know they went and got Crabtree, but when Amari Cooper was drafted, they drafted him to be the guy for Derek Carr and his number one weapon. Whereas I think Ruggs, not only is he drafted to be a threat, but he's kind of more just a supporting cast in a more dynamic, explosive offense that the Raiders want to employ. So I do agree. I think that still, his number one target is going to be the Wallers and the Williamses, and Ruggs is just going to be part of that. And then Bowden Jr. is going to be in there, and Edwards is going to make his way in there. Zay Jones, all these guys. So it's really going to be Derek Carr is going to be able to really spread the ball around, not just pick on one wide receiver and make him a Pro Bowler his rookie year. I do think that Gruden's offensive play calling is going to make it so that everybody gets their hand on the ball, and that just makes it so he's not going to get 100, passes thrown his way this year.
I completely agree with you, Eli. I think Henry Ruggs is not going to break the record because it's so many weapons we have on offense now. And you just can't keep throwing to one person now. Tyrell Williams is healthy. That's one. He's healthy this year. Number two, you still have a Darion Waller you have to throw to at tight end. Number three, Hunter Renfro, number 4. Brian Edwards. Then you got Jalen Richard coming out the backfield. That's a pass catching running back.
And
So
don't
you're
forget
going.
Jason Witten as well. So I mean, I know he's old, but he caught 60 balls last year after taking a whole year off. So
Jason
there's
Witte's
a
gonna be
lot.
unstoppable in the goal line, bro.
Exactly. So I think that there's a lot of weapons.
Yeah, it's a lot of weapons to be spread around, especially in different scenarios or different situations or on different downs. So me per se, I have Zay Jones. Zay Jones is one of them too. So it's a lot of weapons around for Derek Carr this year. So I don't see Henry Ruggs getting it, but I can see him getting close to it. Only way I say I can see him getting the yards, especially if it's yards after the catch. I can see him getting it, but when it comes to 72 catches, I'm not too sure about that because they still have to spread the ball around. So I kind of disagree on that, but in some instance, it's a possibility that he can get it. So, and the last one, according to JustBlawBaby.com, we have 3 potential trap games for the Las Vegas Raiders in 2020. Now, I hate trap games because the trap games is always one of the worst games that we always play. We come off of winning 2 or 3 games, and here comes the trap game. Boom. It never fails. So the first game that they have as a trap game is on November 1st against the Cleveland Browns. I am not surprised about this. I am not surprised because we had a struggle against them last year. So how y'all feel about this being one of the trap games this year, knowing that we did improve, but this still could be a trap game?
Well, calling that a trap game, it's a respectable argument, but I'm gonna say no. That I don't call that a trap game because first, we don't know if Baker Mayfield's gonna be like the Baker Mayfield that the Browns fans want him to be, and second of all, we don't know if the defensive line for the Browns is going to be good enough to stop Derek Carr and all the weapons that he's going to have this season. So if we're talking about trap game, I don't see that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't really know. In order to be a trap game, you have to be somebody that you're kind of looking past. And I almost see it kind of from the other way of saying, we don't know what Baker Mayfield's going to be or what their offense is going to be. And potentially, if they, if they're coming off, what is the schedule here? Let me see this. If they're coming off the Chiefs, correct?
I could pull it up for you.
So they would be coming off that big Bucks game, and that's that string of games where they play the Saints, Patriots, Bills, Chiefs, Buccaneers. That's 5 or so potential playoff teams. So I think that the way that it would be a trap game is if they can split those or come through that with a winning record, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're for real. And the Browns are crappy, then that very well could be a trap game.
I agree. I think it could be a trap game as well because say if we win that Buccaneers game, you know how big our heads are going to be that we beat Tom Brady on a primetime game. And I think our game is in Las Vegas or is in Tampa Bay. Which one is in?
It's at Vegas.
It's in Vegas. So just imagine if we win this game in Vegas against the Buccaneers. Our heads going to get high. We're going to get a little bit cocky, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's just the Browns because we just beat Tom Brady and we just beat Rob Gronkowski in his new offense." This is where the trap. That's why they put those games back to back. The NFL set it right up for us. We play the Bucs, and then the next week we play the Browns. It's not too good. It's not 2 good games back to back. It's going to be, we beat the Buccaneers and then we lose to the Browns. It's just something about that game right after playing Tom Brady makes it a trap game, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see what their record is and how they're playing when they get there. If the Raiders come into Cleveland, 2-4 or whatever it is, then it's not a trap game. It's a must-win game. So, hopefully that they are coming in with a winning record. And if they can come into that game with a winning record, that means that they beat some pretty good teams. So, let's hope that it's a trap game.
Roosevelt Winters, we are going to get to Devin Booker. Just give us a second. We just going through all the topics.
Devin.
Devin Booker is on one of our topics, so yes, we will get to him as well. So the next potential game that they have as a trap game is November 29th against the Atlanta Falcons. So they saying before the Raiders play Atlanta, they will face off against the division rivals back to back to back. And then the games can be draining due to the rivalry, especially considering every team in the AFC West should be competitive this season after busy off seasons. Although the Falcons are not the best team, they do have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, where Julio Jones could cause problems in the Raiders' young corners, while Jones is widely regarded as one of the better wide receivers in all of football. And it will be interesting to see if Trayvon Mullen could shut him down. Now, heading into last season, many believe that the Falcons could be a contender in the NFC, and it was pretty shocking on how bad they started to go out. Matt Ryan is a very capable quarterback, and may have some improvements on defense, but nobody should be sleeping on his team, which just happened to be in the Super Bowl a few years back. How do y'all feel about this game against the Atlanta Falcons?
I think that. Remember, I think we said the last week, I have a weird, sneaky feeling about that game on how it is going to be something that the Raiders, no matter how they play, might drop that game. It is an East Coast game, I believe, right? That's in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's in Atlanta.
Yeah, and so I could see that. I mean, that's it, and it's right after the Chiefs, and then it's right before the Jets, who they really want to go ahead and beat. So I think that's the thing too. When you have these games that are that are right after a game, that if they can win that Chiefs game, man, they're going to be at a high, very much like the Bucks game. And so that could potentially play into it. But also, they're going to need to win that Jets game to continue to get AFC wins. So they could be looking past them to try to beat and get revenge on the Jets as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's, again, quintessential trap game.
I wouldn't call it a trap game. More like the Raiders not even going to try like how they did last season with the Jets. They didn't even try at all against the Jets. So, before they play the Falcons, they play the Chiefs. And so I could say that the Raiders could beat the Chiefs, and then the starters, they're going to take a rest and then lose to the Falcons, then get ready for the Jets to get revenge on them. So trap game, I wouldn't say trap game. More like they're not going to even try to play against the Falcons.
But do you notice, every good team that we play, we gotta play a kind of subpar team right after it?
I know.
Just like
first
with
we mentioned the Browns. First the Browns. No. You mentioned the Browns first. Before we play the Browns, we play the Bucks, and now the Falcons. Before we play the Falcons, we play the Chiefs.
So that's why I say this. That's why I consider this a trap game, because just in case if we pull off that upset against Kansas City, you know how crazy the Raider Nation would be if we could pull off an upset. Knowing we got swept last year to the Kansas City Chiefs. Just imagine if we beat them and then we got to go and play the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. We don't know what the Atlanta Falcons record is going to be, number one. And number two, we sitting there with probably a winning record after the Kansas City Chiefs game, with our hopes high, and just to see us go into Atlanta with one of the best wide receivers in football, and we just lay an egg.
I mean, Matt Ryan's still a top tier quarterback. He didn't have, he hasn't been great the last couple of years, and the team hasn't been great, but he's still a quality quarterback. They still have some playmakers, so we'll see what happens.
And yeah, definitely see what happens here. So, and they said, last but not least, on December 27th of 2020, a trap game against the Miami Dolphins. And I'm going to tell you why. It says the Miami Dolphins have been one of the worst teams in the league recently, but have completed and changed their team this offseason. Although they are likely to struggle early, but they could easily become much more of a competitive as this season goes on, especially if they turn to quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Now, not only the Raiders play the Dolphins later in the season, but they do in time where they can actually riding a win streak where it can overlook the Dolphins. And then before Miami, the Raiders will face off the Falcons, Jets, Colts, and Chargers. 4 games that the Raiders could, no doubt, they have to win that game. That's one. They have to win all those games, in my opinion. So if a team is a high on confidence, they tend to overlook lesser opponents, which is something that happened to the Raiders midway through the seasons. This is a final home game for the 2020 slate, so the crowd will certainly be rocking, but the Dolphins play tougher under head coach Brian Flores last season, and they vastly improved talent on both sides of the ball this past season. How do you feel about knowing the Jets? It says the Jets, the Colts, the Chargers, and the Falcons is the 4 teams that we have to play before we go play Miami. How y'all feel about that?
Well, I could say yes. The Dolphins against the Dolphins being a trap game is fair because I believe that the Dolphins, they're going to be a pretty good team, and I'm not going to sleep on the Dolphins this season. We all know how good they're going to be. They got a lot of good weapons. They had a good draft. They drafted Tua, and looking at the good free agency they had, they drafted corners like Byron Jones, and yes, the Dolphins, they're going to be a good team. The Raiders, they're going to think they're going to be the horrible team they've been the past few years, and it's going to be a misery that game.
I don't know. I think that by then, I mean, this is what's if the schedule plays out the way it's written, that's going to be the second to last game. I think it is. By then, the Raiders are going to know what they are. They're going to know what the Dolphins are, and I think more importantly, the Raiders are going to know we have to win games to make the playoffs, or they're just out of it. So if the Raiders are in the playoff hunt, 2 AFC wins against the Dolphins and the Broncos are probably going to be must-win games. So I don't know how you can have a trap game if you're fighting for your playoff life against those very same teams, maybe the Broncos and the Dolphins. I mean, Enrique, if you're correct and the Dolphins are so improved, they could be fighting for a playoff position. So by then, I think that the Raiders, if they're where we want them to be, they're in their playoff push. That's a must-win game. So I don't see that being a trap game.
I don't think it could be a trap game either. And I think we'll find our identity by the time we get to that Miami game. And only way I could say it, if it does become a trap game, only way is that I don't know if Tua is going to start the whole season. I just don't know. We don't know when Tua is going to get in. What if they start Tua against us at that time? And he hasn't played all year. So that's film that we really don't have on this kid if he doesn't play. But that's another topic of another time. But outside of that, I don't think this is a trap game. I think this is a win for us. I don't think this is a game that we look over knowing that we might be in the playoff hunt by the time that happens, and beating the Jets and beating mind you, if we beat the Patriots, if we beat the Jets, and we beat, I think we go 3-1 against this AFC East, because I think the only team that we'll lose to is the Buffalo Bills. If we win those 3 games in the AFC East, we're definitely in the playoffs. That's no ifs, ands, and no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So I feel like this is not a trap game to me. I think this is not an easy one, but this is a win for the Raiders. Absolutely. All right, so let's get over to the next of the topics that we have, and then we're going to go into the live Q&A. Now, according to Raiders Wire and according to the NFL, they said the NFL granted the Raiders request to pair East Coast games to have an option to stay over. Now, I'm just going to read a little bit of this because it says that with the release of the NFL schedule last week, the yearly counting of mileage, knowing that me and Enrique did this in some instances, which we have the 7th most mileage in the NFL with like 22,000 miles that we're going to have to travel this year. And on the first time in 4 years, the Raiders won't lead that in that category. The primary reason is because of no international home games. Thank freaking God. No international games. Thank God. So the second reason is that they will call Las Vegas home, saving them the average of 689 miles round trip on home games, which they traveled to the East. Now, what it's saying is that the Raiders are one of the 8 teams that have requested a pair up long two road games, which is according to NBC's Peter King, and NFL granted that request. Now the games have they paired was 2 trips to Atlanta and New York, which is weeks 12 and week 13. Now the purpose of this connection, these East Coast games, is to give the team the option staying through the week, and they choose to do so. It does allow them to cut out a long flight back-to-back 10 a.m. Pacific time starts and tie a franchise record with the most 10 a.m. Pacific time start games this season. So that would be helpful. So it said that you may recall this in the 2016 under Jack Del Rio when he had consecutive games in Florida, first in Jacksonville, then in Tampa, and they stayed over in Orlando and practiced through the week there. And won both games, by the way. So staying over that week would hack approximately 3,228 miles off their season travel total, bringing it down to 20,968 miles traveled. How do y'all feel about this? Knowing
Now,
that
okay,
I just feel like I'm gonna go first on this one. I'm gonna just go first on this one real quick. I feel like if we could stay over that week between Atlanta and New York, and mind you, just from what it said, that when we played Jacksonville and when we played Tampa Bay, we won both of those games when we did in 2016. I think if we play New York and then go back to Las Vegas and come back, that's going to kill us. So I think we should stay over. I think we should stay on the East Coast for a week. That's just my opinion. I think what they're saying is I like it. I think it helps us out being healthy. I help us instead of all the traveling. It doesn't. It's just a headache to travel back and forth from New York to Las Vegas and then from Las Vegas to Atlanta and then go back. I think it's just too much.
well, let me tell you this. I think that the amount of a flight that we got is one of the main reasons why we had a bad record because of how much flights we had back home and then back to the East. So I like the schedule that we had. The fact that we first played the Patriots, then we stayed in the East to play the. Oh wait, this is in Vegas. Okay, so never mind that. So for week 12 and 13, right? Falcons and the Jets.
Right.
So I like it. I like it. The fact that we stay in the East for 2 games in a row, so that we don't have to fly back to Vegas. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and also John Gruden over the last couple of years, if there's one thing that we can say is that he's had the experience of dealing with his team traveling, and I think he's getting a more of a sense of how his team responds when they have to travel to the East Coast, overseas, et cetera, et cetera. So if he's making this decision and they want to do that, I back that. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm all for it as well. I definitely if it takes the travel toll out of it, I have no issue. I have no issue with that as well. So, me per se, hey, I'm ready for it. I think the schedule it kind of favors us a minute with all the traveling, but I think not us traveling as much definitely help us out a lot in my personal opinion. So we could go to the next topic here. So according to ESPN, speaking of ESPN, boo hoo hoo, they given us a B grade for the 2020 offseason moves. Now what was stated is that by I don't know why this came on, but it's I don't can y'all still hear me, right? Y'all can still hear me,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I'm just making sure. So it says by all accounts that the Raiders have a very successful offseason. In free agency, they added a few starters on the defense along with a ton of depth in the draft, and they selected 3 offensive playmakers in Ruggs, Bowden, and Brian Edwards. Now, some of the national media is starting to get behind the Raiders as a sleeper team in 2020 due to all the savvy moves that they made in the offseason. First up is the Bleacher Report. And they said that the Las Vegas Raiders deserve a lot of credit for addressing the needs while not chasing many high-priced tag players in free agency while The additions of Demarius Randall, Jason Witten, Jeff Heath, Eric Cush aren't going to turn heads, but it does give the Raiders a lot deeper roster. Now, Knox did praise the signing linebacker of Corey Littleton as well, that they'll have a major impact on the Raiders defense, along with veteran not running back, linebacker Nick Kowalski, and they should significantly be more athletic at the second level in 2020. My stream ended. Darn it. I'm sorry. My other stream on Big O Live did end. I do apologize for that. But it did say while Knox loved the Raiders and did in free agency, he wasn't quite as sold on their draft class, believing that the team reached on cornerback Damon Arnett, which proved the overall offseason down to a B. But however, Knox believed that the Raiders will be a better team in 2020 with long-term future. Looks fantastic with Mike Mayock and John Gruden in charge. It'll be fascinating to see how all these moves work out this year in Las Vegas. What are your, points? What are y'all thinks of that being an overall B of the offseason that we did this year?
Now the haters, they're going to say that when we drafted Damon and Ned 19th overall was a reach, but it was a need for us because we know how weak our cornerbacks are. We needed a young corner, and now for what ESPN gave us, you said a B, right? You said B. Okay. I could say B plus is like the best because we didn't get the players that we needed in free agency. Like I was disappointed we didn't get Byron Jones, but I felt like that Byron Jones is gonna want a lot of money, which is why we didn't get him. And looking at the draft that we had, we got pretty good players that we needed. We got Damon Annette and Emig Robertson. Now, Emig Robertson, I still call that a questionable pick. Looking at that he just had a surgery in his groin, we have to see if that man could play for us big time. Now, with the other picks that we had, like Henry Ruggs, Lynn Bowden, and Brian Edwards, I call those good picks, in my opinion. I believe that those picks are going to be pretty useful for us and pretty useful for Derek Carr as well. So if we're calling it a grade for the Raiders, I say B plus.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're overblowing the reach for Arnett on this, and I think that a lot of people who really were scratching their heads about Arnett's pick are kind of looking back and saying, well, maybe it wasn't as much of a reach as they initially thought. Plus, it's an extreme need for the team. Darion, I think you said earlier, we really improved pretty much every single area of concern that we had last year. We touched on it a bit in free agency or the draft. The Littleton signing in itself, I just don't, maybe this guy doesn't realize how terrible our linebackers have been for the last 10 years. The Littleton signing itself shored up probably our biggest need, which was not being able to stop tight ends, and Littleton should be able to do that. We touched the cornerback in the draft. We added to safety in free agency. We got Nassib on the defensive line. We got Mariota to help shore up a quarterback room, which was devoid of talent past Derek Carr at all. So I think that this was a B plus offseason. I think the Raiders got better pretty much everywhere where they needed to, except for maybe getting another stud defensive end. But I think Nassib is going to really surprise some people this year.
I couldn't agree with y'all more. I'm definitely giving this a B or a B plus for our, for our offense, for our defense, for our overall team. I think we did better than just a B. Could we definitely solidified each and every position as far as depth. And I think we went out and got players that fit our system instead of going for a high price player that don't even compare to what our system is, or don't want to play in our system. They just want to do their own thing. So we've got players who want to play for the Raiders, and we got them on contracts that we really didn't break the bank. I think the most that we really paid for was Corey Littleton out of all the free agents that we signed. So I say a B plus for me because of the draft and the free agency put together. It was outstanding. It was very. People might say the reach for Damon Arnett, but if you look at that man's stats and you look what he did at Ohio State, his stats, the numbers does not lie. The
Plus,
numbers
he's
does
won.
the numbers don't lie for Ohio State. He played on the opposite side of Jeff Okuda, where they was two shut down corners at Ohio State and barely got thrown to, so they had to attack the middle of the field against those linebackers. So I'm not mad at that. And then Amik Robinson, like you said, Enrique, understand he's coming off a groin injury, but I think he's going to be healthy and he's going to be a beast on this defense. So it's just a lot that I like about that. So I give it a B plus as well.
Well, just hope that Meg Robertson could be the beast that he was at Louisiana Tech.
I think he will be. He, like I said, he brings the swagger. He brings the swagger. He's going to bring that grit to that. With him and Trayvon Mullen and Damon Arnett, mind you, Damon Arnett comes from the Ohio State. They have no choice to perform. So, let's go into the next. Speaking of that, I'm gonna just mute you real quick, Enrique. But speaking of that, that was Bleacher Report that we talked about the grade. This is according to ESPN. And speaking of Carl Nassib and what you said, Eli, they said ESPN believes that the Raiders still need to improve their pass rush in 2020. I disagree with this. I mean, they did say that the Raiders did make, some good offseason improvements on both sides of the ball with Corey Littleton, Nick Kowalski, Malik Collins on defense. And then, you put them rookies with Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby, who created 14.5 sacks in 2019. But the Raiders need to take a next step, according to what they said. So this is the recent article by ESPN and what they said. They said the newly improved Raiders finished 27th in adjusted sack rate in 2019. It didn't make any impact addition on the edge for the 2020 season. Drafting nobody, bringing in Carl Nassib in free agency. Now, Max Crosby has an impact rookie season with 10 sacks. Cleveland Farrell is still young, and Maurice Hurst has shown some promise. But Crosby appears to be the only rusher who seems other teams have to game plan for. That's something that could cost the Raiders the negative plays and there to create over a season to get their young secondary. Get the heck out of here. Number one, I'm just going to say this right now. If they game plan around Max Crosby, doesn't that open things up for every other defensive player that's on that line? Am I crazy?
In theory, it should.
I couldn't hear you, Eli.
I mean, in theory, it should, yeah. But I think that I will say this. Benson Mayoa was a kind of a underappreciated member of the defense last year. I mean, he had 7 sacks last year. He's no longer there. So let's just say Nassib steps in and equals that production from just a sack perspective. That would be actually really great. I think that would make him a very valuable add to the defense, but you're only replacing what you lost already. I've said this a million times that I think that Max Crosby is still going to be a very good quality starting defensive end, but his production will not match last year's. So you're going to have to get that sack production from somewhere else. They're putting a lot of eggs in the basket of Cleveland Farrell to step up and be a more productive player from a pass rushing standpoint if they're not going to bring in another pass rusher like Ngakwe or even a Everson Griffin, who is also a free agent from the Vikings. So I am surprised still that they haven't gone, but Collins again from Dallas can push the pocket from the defensive tackle position. So if Hurst can continue to develop, maybe that's where they're going to be making up some of this pressure on the quarterback. I don't know. So I can see where they're coming from. If Cleveland Farrell can step up, play like a number 4 pick and have 8 sacks this year, then I think that there's not much to be worried about.
So wait.
Go ahead, Enrique.
Darion, where did you say that report was from? First off,
ESPN.
Guys in the chat, do not listen to ESPN anymore because are because it shows a lot of improvement. Looking at our free agency and draft, and looked at look at how young our D line is. Like we still got Max Crosby and Cleveland Farrell, which I believe they're going to improve a lot this season. And you look at the safeties that we signed and drafted, and the corners that we drafted as well. So yeah, that's why I say that it shows a lot of improvement, in my opinion.
And there is potential to get it from existing, internal people. So I don't know. I don't really buy this. Yeah, I think that these people probably were surprised that the Raiders didn't pull the trigger on Yannick Ngakoue. I think that the Raiders are happy with who they have, and time will tell.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I just feel like if we go out and get Nagat, whatever his Yannick, I'm gonna say Yannick. That's where I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna see Yannick, and I feel like if we did go out and get him, we just didn't have the money for him. I think we wanted to get him. It's just the cap space of what he's asking for is just what we can't do. That's why I feel about Javion Clowney. That's why I think the Raiders is not going into that sweepstakes either, because they realistically know financially they can't afford it to. Now, if they financially could afford Yannick or Javion Clowney, I think we could have pulled the trigger on one of them. But knowing that the Raiders wanted to, improve this defensive line, I just feel like if they're going to game plan around Max Crosby, it's going to help out Pharrell get to the quarterback. It's going to help out these defensive tackles because, mind you, it's game planned around Max Crosby. And now you're going to have to game plan around Corey Littleton and Kowalski because they could rush the quarterback as well. So now you're going to have to game plan around these new faces that understand that they did play last year with different teams, but I think the continuity is going to be there. But my personal opinion here is that the ESPN can shove it. That's just me. ESPN can shove it with this article. That's just how I feel about ESPN. Honestly,
That's what I said. Chad
they
never listened to ESPN.
they can shove it, man. They could definitely shove it. So let's go into the next topic, and I think the next topic is the okay. So the Raiders waive linebacker Derek Moncrief to make room for the addition of Devontae Booker. Now we did sign Devontae Booker last week. I don't know if Eli, you already mentioned how you felt about the signing, right?
I think we talked about it a little bit that they were going to sign him. I think that it's a camp signing, to be perfectly honest. I mean, already, if you think that Jalen Richard is going to continue to be on this team, which I think we all agree, and if Jacobs is going to be the guy, which again, I think we all agree, and Bowden Jr. is going to be a running back on this team, I don't see, and Alec Ingold is the fullback, right? So most teams, you're probably going to carry 4 running backs, including your fullback, which the Raiders will every single week be dressing and carrying a fullback. Those are your 4 running backs. So I don't see where Booker, stays on this roster if Bowden Jr. can do what the Raiders want him to do, which is take snaps at running back. I think that John Gruden loves Jalen Richard. I think that you're going to see him with a lot more touches, not just out of the backfield, but running the ball to spot Josh Jacobs. I know a lot of people were asking who's the bell cow in case Jacobs gets hurt. I think that's where you're going to see the Bookers is if Jacobs gets hurt, you're going to the practice squad or you're finding somebody like a Booker who you brought in early to kind of introduce your playbook to, and you're going to go ahead and sign them and have them come in to spell Richard and Bowden Jr. He's not going to be a full-fledged member of this team starting week 1, I don't think.
Devontae Booker, let me just say this. We all know he's not going to be our full-time backup running back. Like, we got running backs, like let's say Josh Jacobs, and if the Raiders want to put Lynn Bowden in a running back, they can do that. But even if they put him a wide receiver, we still got running backs like Rod Smith, which I believe I don't want to say that he's better than Devin Booker, but I feel like team chemistry, Rod Smith is gonna take over Devontae Booker in the backup running back position. So if we're talking about running back depth, I could say yes, this was a good signing at first, but if it doesn't fit John Gruden's offense, I don't see it being a good one.
I think that Booker can do the things that John Gruden wants him to do. So I think it's a good signing. I just don't, I wouldn't expect too much of, you know, Booker being on the team or contributing to the team outside of preseason to get himself acclimated with the offense in case that there's an injury to a Jalen Richard or to a Josh Jacobs. And I think that he can catch the ball out of the backfield, which Gruden likes, and he can run the ball okay. So he's going to be your number 3 guy. Because again, I think that Jalen Richard is taking Washington's spot as really the main ball carrier, other than Josh Jacobs.
I feel like Rod Smith is going to come in more of a fullback to back up Alec Ingold before he becomes the actual running back on his depth chart. So me personally is going to be Josh Jacobs, Jalen Richard, then Devontae Booker. That's where those 3 is going to come in at. Now, Devontae Booker could come in on third downs just in case if Josh Jacobs or Jalen Richard need a break. You could always put Devontae Booker in some instance on his offense. But my problem with Devontae Booker is, does he have his has he improved on his fumbling issue? He had that issue in Denver, but I feel like Denver didn't give him the shot that he wanted because of Philip Lindsay. Now, what I think Devontae Booker could come in and win the third depth chart, be the third running back on the depth chart? Absolutely, I think so. But I do feel like when it comes to Devontae Booker, it's some instance I thought it was a great pick. I mean, we didn't break the bank for him. It's only like a 1-year deal. I didn't even know who Derek Moncrief was. I guess he was on a practice squad. I'm not too sure. But they did waive him to move Devin Booker on to the football team. Do you think that Devin Booker would make it through training camp, or do y'all think he will be cut?
I don't think he's going to make it through training camp. And let's just say, let's hope he doesn't make it through training camp, because then that means Bowden Jr. looks good at running back where they want to put him, and he's going to be able to take those third running back spots that Jalen Richard used to take, and also be a lot more dynamic in the play calling because of his ability at wildcat quarterback and at wide receiver.
First of all, Darion, this is a football stream, not a basketball stream. I've been hearing you say Devin Booker when it's Devontae Booker. And
I always get their names mixed up. Devontae Booker, Devin Booker, they all look the same.
Yeah. And for Devontae Booker, if John Gruden doesn't play Devontae Booker that much, if Josh Jacobs and Jalen Richard don't get injured that much, I don't see Devontae Booker playing for us at all, in my opinion.
I think he makes the team. That's if he improves. I know that we got Lynn Bowden. I just think he makes the team. I just think we'll give him a shot since we signed him to like a 1-year deal. But the final topic of the night before we go into the chat and get some questions. Ranking the starting quarterbacks in the AFC West. So, what I see here, and with the article I'm looking at from RaiderRamble.com, of course they had Patrick Mahomes at number 1. Of course, Super Bowl champion, MVP, has improved, which I can't say in the Chiefs anyway. Number 2, they put Derek Carr as the number 2 best quarterback in the AFC West. We're going to get back to that. We're going to read on that as well. But the number 3, they have Drew Lock, which I should have put him at number 4 because the donkey should definitely be at number 4. And then they have Tyrod Taylor with the Chargers at number 4. But let's go back up to Derek Carr. And I'm kind of happy that he's there, but I think Tyrod Taylor is going to be number 4. Only reason why I say that is because Justin Herbert's going to be the starting quarterback, not Tyrod Taylor. So that's just he could be. They drafted him too high for him to be the starting quarterback. But according to what it says arriving in second place in the division, is the 6-year Raiders starting signal caller. 2019 proved to be a middle of the road season for Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders. However, the rookie wide receivers look to solve that one-dimensional tendencies in the passing offense in the silver and black first selection in the 2020 draft with Henry Ruggs. It took to change the conservative narrative of Carr. That's why they made him number two. How do you feel about him being ranked number two behind Patrick Mahomes in this division with with Derek Carr?
I would like to go first with this one. Sorry, Eli, by the
No,
way.
go for it, man.
Derek Carr needs to prove him right that he deserves to be like the second best quarterback in the AFC West. And for those below us, we all know that that the Chargers quarterback is going to be Justin Herbert, and I feel like Justin Herbert, or I believe Herbert, is going to be a better quarterback than Drew Lock. And so Derek Carr, the reason why he didn't play that great the past few years because he didn't have good receivers. And look at the receivers we have for him now. Derek Carr needs to show that they did the right thing, putting him as the second best in the AFC West.
Well, it's not. I mean, he's the second best, but really, it's just he's better than crap. I don't think Drew Lock is a very good quarterback, and I don't think Tyrod Taylor is a very good quarterback. If Justin Herbert starts, we don't really know what he can do. We've never seen him throw a ball. I'm surprised Lured Raider actually put him at number two. He's been pretty troll-tastic with his Carr digging on Twitter. But that being said, yeah, Derek Carr is the second best quarterback. You can't say anything else than Derek Carr is the second best quarterback. He's very, very far second to Mahomes. But I think that he's going to be a good, solid quarterback this year. And I don't think either of those other two quarterbacks are going to be good, solid quarterbacks. So just with being said that, you have the best player in the NFL, a good, solid quarterback, and then garbage.
Hey, I couldn't agree with y'all more. I think Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock is definitely not a good quarterback in his league. I mean, he does. Of course, he has Jerry Jeudy. He got a few more weapons that he did get in the draft, but doesn't mean that he's going to be the third best quarterback. I think Justin Herbert beats out Drew Lock in my personal opinion, or if it's Tyrod Taylor, I think it still beats out Drew Lock. But Derek Carr being number two, I think he could definitely move to be a little bit, because mind you, it's Patrick Mahomes and then it's the rest. I think Derek Carr can go. He can move up if he can put up the numbers that he puts up. So when it comes to Derek Carr, I just feel like, I mean, he threw for 4,000 passing yards last year. We all understand that, but I think his completion percentage or his completion ratio has to be better. I think it's because his numbers is not flashy, but they're effective. That's what makes him number two in the AFC West.
Yeah, he won't be number one, but
Yeah,
if he's not number two, we're in trouble.
Right. And I just feel like like I said, it's Patrick Mahomes and then there's the rest. But I feel like if Derek Carr can make that step, he could be closer to Patrick Mahomes if he makes that step and they widen up the playbook and make it a little bit more creative for him. So that is all the topics that we had for the topics that we had for today. So everybody that's in the chat right now, if you have any questions for any of us, Eli, myself, and Enrique, please let us know, and we can answer those questions for you. So please let us know while we talk amongst ourselves. And Eli, I need to get your Twitter, man. I don't even have your Twitter.
Talk to us.
My Twitter, if anybody would like to follow me, please do. I'm very new to the game. It is at Showdown Shaka. That's SHAIK. So at Showdown Shaka is my Twitter. I don't tweet as often as some do, but I lurk around and I try to be very, poignant and in discussions, but it's a little nasty. I'm a nice guy on Twitter. I don't try to hammer down.
You said Showdown Shaker?
Yep, Showdown Shaker.
Spell the last part for me again.
At Shaka Showdown?
Yeah.
Oh, Shaker Showdown.
Oh,
Okay.
is that what it is? I thought it was Showdown Shaking. Let me look and see.
Don't trick me, Eli.
Yeah, that's very strange. Yeah, Ad Shaker Showdown is what it is. So yeah, I'm trying
Hey
to.
Enrique, if you could find him for some reason I can't find him, can you just tweet at him so I can follow him? My Twitter's been acting retarded because when I try to search people and try to follow them, it won't pop up. So I have to have someone at me and that person on there, and that's on the Spotlight Raiders Talk on
So
Twitter, which
so
is
here's a
Spotlight Art and Talk.
Okay, so I at you at Spotlight Raiders Talk, right?
Yeah, Spotlight Art and Talk. Art in because
Uh, yeah, I see it.
All right, so Roosevelt Winters says, "Who are you expecting more out of this year, Amik Robinson or Brian Edwards?" Who wants to answer this question?
I will answer this question because I'm going to smash everyone's dreams and say that Amik Robertson is not going to be a dynamic addition to the Raiders' defensive backfield in 2020. I feel like he is going to be a depth cornerback, and I feel like he's going to work hard and see some snaps. But even though everyone loves him, and I love him as a guy, I love his interviews. I think he's feisty. I think he's tenacious, and I love his tape. For some reason, I just think I think it's too perfect. Everyone loves him too much, and I don't see him panning out this year as being a really good addition. But I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to stay on the Raiders, continue to be a depth player for the defensive backfield, and in a couple of years take over for not just Joyner but for whoever in the slot and be a solid contributor moving forward. Now with Brian Edwards, I think that he is not going to blow the doors down either, but I can see him having some really crucial third down catches with using his big body and also maybe a couple really crucial touchdowns as well. I don't think he's going to put up a lot of numbers per what we were talking about earlier with just so many weapons, but I don't see either having a crazy good year, but I think both are going to be beneficial for the Raiders' future. And I see just 2020 being a better statistical year and overall year for Brian Edwards.
Now, what question are we answering? Who are you expecting more out of this year? Amick Robertson or Brian Edwards? Okay. Well, the answer to that question is very, very simple. Amick Robertson. And I say that because you know how weak our corner was the last season. And now we got Damon Arnett and Amick Robertson to fill that position. Now, Amick Robertson, if he doesn't do that good, I'll be disappointed. But you all know that he just had surgery in his groin. And if he does become a beast that he was at Louisiana Tech, I'll be happy for that. Now, for Brian Edwards, let's not forget, he's not the only receiver. I've been saying this a bunch of times in this stream already. He's not the only receiver that we drafted. We also got Bowden and Ruggs. So if Brian Edwards is doing horrible, you got someone else to step up. It could be Henry Ruggs. It could be Lynn Bowden. You never know. But, yeah, that's why I say Amick Robertson. I expect him more than Brian Edwards.
Well, I think Brian Edwards is going to have a better year because Amik Robinson, we just don't know what we're going to get. Mind you, he's still a young corner. I think corners are one of the most toughest positions in football, from a defensive aspect, even from an offensive aspect. I still think one of the tough positions in football. Brian Edwards could definitely come in and make an impact with all the weapons that we have, and definitely in all the scenarios. I just feel like Brian Edwards would be he would be better than Amik Robinson this year. Absolutely. So my expectations, I'm more expecting to see more out of Brian Edwards than seeing Amik Robinson.
Hey, you never know. I mean, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round.
Hey, I mean, you never know.
I think also just from just the casual fan, but I think it's just going to be as a wide receiver, it's a lot easier to see your production than a cornerback, right? You could be, a stellar cornerback, but not know that you have done anything for 3 straight games. But you just, unless you're really looking at the advanced statistics, which not that many people do. So I think that's another reason why again, I think Amik Robertson is going to utilize 2020 to learn the defense, get stronger, get faster, get quicker. He's going to be a solid contributor to this team moving forward. I just don't see him having a great standout year in 2020. But that's, he's a fourth round pick, so that's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely not a big deal there. So let me see. Do we have any more questions? Who's going to be corner number 2, Johnson or Arnett?
I think that, again, I keep coming back to this, but I really do think that it's going to be a factor. And even just if this offseason, just the way that it's set up, that there's just so much more online, there's so fewer. I think that they said that they're projecting to have almost 400 fewer snaps with their newer players this year, as a team. So I think with that being said, for the starter week 1 on any position on any team across the NFL, I'm going to be inclined to give the benefit to the veteran player. Now, I know Johnson didn't play an awful lot last year, but he's still been around 1 year. He knows the defense. He knows how to be a pro a little bit better than Arnett. I see him being the starting quarterback week 1, but I see Arnett, obviously, if he can ball out and play to his potential, I'd love to see those two guys playing at a high level and pushing each other, and really having 3 good cornerbacks along with Trayvon Mullen to have at both of those starting spots, with Joyner actually being a solid slot corner.
It's going to be a tough question to answer, because let's remember this. These are 2 young corners, and it's going to be a competition at corner, because look at the corners we have. We have Trayvon Mullen, Isaiah Johnson, David Arnett, and Amik Robertson. So if we're talking about who could be cornerback number 2, I'm going to say this. Isaiah Johnson, he's going to be the starting corner for week 1, but I think David Arnett is going to step up big time at week 2. That's what I say.
I don't know. So they talking about Isaiah Johnson?
Yes.
I haven't seen anything proven from. I'm just going to be honest. I just haven't seen anything proven from Isaiah Johnson, knowing that he has been hurt. So him being number 2, I could kind of disagree with that. I think Arnett is going to start at number 2, just to see where the health status is for Isaiah Johnson. I don't know if he's 100%. That's the only problem with the situation with Johnson or Arnett. Arnett has, I don't think he has any injury background. No way. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No way. I don't think Johnson is going to start over Arnett. I just don't think so.
I mean, what makes you say that? I know that he was a 4th round pick, but again, we haven't seen Arnett take 1 snap as a professional.
True.
Johnson already has 1 year, and Mayock and Gruden have both raved about him. And not only them, but also the defensive backs coach. Everyone's expecting for Johnson to make a push for the starting quarterback role. So I wouldn't pen Arnett in as our starting quarterback just yet. That doesn't mean that by the end of the season he won't be, and that also doesn't mean that a rotation of those 3 guys really playing well isn't the best bet. And that could be great. Having 3 great quarterbacks is way better than having 2 great quarterbacks.
I just feel like I have not seen enough from Johnson to make him a starter because of the lack of injury.
How much have you seen of Arnett? Any of you?
I watched Arnett in college. Don't get me wrong. I watched Arnett in college, so technically both of them are unproven. But if I want to go health wise, I'm going with Arnett over Johnson health wise. Just don't know where we're going to get out of Johnson. We don't know if he's going to be healthy by the time he gets to week 1. We just don't know. So it's kind of like up in the air as a toss up. Now if Johnson is 100% good through the offseason and the preseason, he's going to start by week 1. But if he's still on the sideline with an injury, it's going to give opportunity for Arnett to start.
Well, let me tell you this.
Oh, go ahead, Enrique.
Let me tell you this. Maybe in the first quarter of week 1, maybe Isaiah Johnson would start. But if John Gruden thinks that Isaiah Johnson needs to take a rest, I have Damon Arnett in, and if Damon Arnett steps up big time, that's going to be news for John Gruden by saying put Arnett with Mullen at corner.
Yeah, and speaking of Mullen, everyone kind of is automatically penning him in as the starting, cornerback at cornerback one, which I guess he's the best bet right now. But I mean, he's also only shown pretty much half a great season too. So the reason, somebody mentioned why would we take a first round cornerback in round one? Because even Mullen's not exactly a proven cornerback number one. Depth and talent at cornerback, everybody needs tons of cornerbacks. All I'm saying is that the organization is very high on Isaiah Johnson, very high. And it's not out of the realm of possibility with the offseason being the way it is that Arnett takes a little bit longer and that starting week one, it's not going to be him. And he's going to have to work his way and get comfortable and become a starting quarterback later in the year.
I feel like all these corners got to develop. Not just one, not just two. I think all these corners are going to have to develop because Trayvon Miller's only going into his second year. Isaiah Johnson going into his second year, but we have not seen a down from him last year. And then now we have two unproven corners coming out. Mind you, Damon Arnett was a first round pick. He's going to have to see the field at some point. He's going to have to see the field. And then it's just that who can stay healthy within the 17 weeks. That's what it's going to come down to. You got to put the best players on the field. And I feel like right now, after looking at Damon Arnett and his ability, understand people think is a reach. I'm still kind of thinking is a reach, but I'm kind of going to move towards it just because of how physical Damon Arnett plays. If we don't have that physical corner, we haven't had a real physical corner in years, if you want to be honest. So, I mean, Mullen is going to be the no guarantee cornerback one, but he's still unproven. But if Paul Guntner could get these players to play at the best of their ability, I don't mind who starts. As long as you put the right players on the field, I don't care who starts.
Well, that brings up, and Enrique, maybe you've heard about this too. They posted somewhere that are the Raiders still pondering on getting a veteran cornerback, even with all these young guys in there? I mean, is that something that's still up in the air? I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of unproven, albeit talented guys on the back end. And do you go into the season with one guy who you think is going to be your QB1 who probably can do it in Trayvon Mullen, and then two unproven guys trying to be number two? I mean, what do you think about that?
Signing a veteran cornerback, I would say that would be a good idea in my opinion. It would bring leadership to all our young corners, and also if it'll also add depth to our corner as well. Like saying that if they need rest, that veteran corner could step up for us, and we'll have our starters get back there.
I agree. And if it's on a 1 year deal, perfect. And then these young guys, this trio of cornerbacks. I mean, if you want to include Johnson in there, this trio of young cornerbacks who you hope is the backbone of your defensive backfield for years to come, along with Abram and Amik Robertson. That's what I think the Raiders are hoping for. And if that comes to fruition, I mean, I think we all have a lot to be excited about.
Now, Fierce Raider, you say you disagree that Mullen is the number one cornerback, and there's to it. Mullen held Tyreek to 2 catches for 19 yards in the second game and played well mid-late season. Yeah, but mind you, can he do that? Can he do that twice a year? That's the problem. We don't know that. And now bringing in a veteran corner like a Logan Ryan would definitely help out these young corners. It will definitely give us some veteranship there. Mind you, we already have veteranship at safety with Joyner and Demarius Randall and Jeff Heath. They are veteran safeties. Now we need veterans at the corner position. We don't have any corner that's been there more than 4 years. We don't have no corner there. So we're still young between 1 to 3 years. No, 1 to 2 years. So bringing in a veteran corner just to help, I wouldn't mind that. But a Logan Ryan wants too much money. That's why we didn't go on him. But if we could bring in a veteran corner that was solidified to help out this backfield, not this backfield, but the back end, I would take that. Roosevelt Winter says, what chances Joyner finds success at the nickel spot?
You can take this one, Enrique.
What?
It says,
Well,
what chances Joyner finds success at the nickel spot?
I don't know what to say about that.
I mean, I at this point, 50%. I don't know. I mean, last year I really did have I think everybody had much higher hopes for Joyner. They obviously see something in him that makes them think that he is the best spot for cornerback. But again, them kind of working him into safety this offseason, that could be the writing on the wall as well, that they aren't too happy about that and might need to put him and move him over to safety in case Abram, that's the whole other thing too. Is Abram the guy at strong safety? That's a unproven second year safety as well. So, you have a lot of unproven potential talent in the back end. So I think Joyner is there. If worst case scenario, maybe he can move to safety and maybe that's the best bet for him. But he certainly didn't do very well at all last year at slot. So he can only go up, right?
Yeah, he could only go up. And I have to say that just because I feel like with LaMarcus Joyner, I think safety is his spot. And I feel like the Raiders is trying to make him play something that he's not really good at. And I just feel like with Paul Guntner, you got to understand. You have to understand that this guy came in playing safety for the Rams. And you got to go look at it again. You got to go look at it again because I understand you went out and got Demarius Randall and Jeff Heath. I understand that. But we don't know the status of Jonathan Abram either. So now if Jonathan Abram can't play, now you put LaMarcus Joyner there. I mean, DeMarcus Joyner and Demarius Randall, I'm not too bad at that for safety because that's veterans that can help out the corners as well. But I still think we should go get a corner. But Salvatore said Dre Fitzpatrick. That's kind of a veteran corner that you probably don't have to spend money on, honestly. So, yeah, I think LaMarcus Joyner will be all right. It's going to take him a little while to adjust, but I think he's going to be fine. Let me go back up in the comments real quick.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to kind of, I agree with everybody saying that Joyner was not an effective safety slot cornerback last year. I agree. He was probably one of the more frustrating players on the squad last year. The team sees something in him. The coaches see something in him that makes them believe that he can be slotted there in the slot. And they're going to continue to try that. I think that he's going to play some snaps at slot. He's going to play some snaps at safety. It really depends on how well Amik Robertson plays. He's definitely been signed to be the future probably at slot cornerback for the Raiders. But we'll see if he's able to actually step in and take down the great slot receivers that we have in this division.
Yeah, it's definitely going to come down to it. But like George Whitley said, Joyner is a safety. He should not be playing slot corner. That is a bad idea. I definitely agree with you there. He's definitely better as safety than he is as a corner. Everyone is high on Abram, but the dude only played one game, hoping that he as good as we all want him to believe.
Chris Ford just nailed it. I was just rewatching that Broncos game today, and to be perfectly honest with you, I forgot that Abram had a couple big penalties in that, and that was really the only things that he showed before he got injured. So I do listen, for all intents and purposes, I think that he can be a starting strong safety in the NFL, but he hasn't done it more than a half of a game. So, fingers crossed on all these young guys. I do think that, especially in the second half of the year, this coming year, we're going to have a pretty solid young defensive backfield.
Yep. And Jonathan Abram, you saw what he did against the Broncos last season, and that he went down with injury. And This is gonna be a tough. Like safety is another position where it's gonna be a competition because of the safeties that we have in the team and those that we sign in free agency. Plus, Jeff Heath bringing the leadership at the safety position. You saw what he did in his career with the Cowboys. So this leadership that Jeff Heath will bring to these young safeties, it's going to be a good one.
Um, I don't really. I mean, I just think Jonathan Adams has to change his play. He has to change his play style. Me personally, I understand you want to be a big hitter every single time. You want to lay the wood every single time, but your health is more important than just trying to injure other people when you're injuring yourself. So I think his playing style has to change a little bit. And I feel like with him, I understand that like you want to like injure people or you want to bring that old school feel back, but we're in an era where you can still hit hard, but you don't have to hit hard to injure yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I think his playing style has to change a little bit, get better in coverage, and don't worry about the big hit, get the turnover. That's just how I am with it.
I'm sure that he's going to learn how to play the ball better and all that stuff. But I don't agree that he's got to change his playing style. That was part of the risk of drafting him. He is a reckless, an aggressive, reckless player at the safety position. It's part of what makes him the type of player who he is. So it was unfortunate the way that it turned out last year because he did get injured. But I think that if you tell him to hold back, you're pretty much taking the fangs off the cobra, right? You want that guy to be vicious. You want him to be reckless and go in there. He's going to learn as a veteran to add some nuance to his game for sure. But right now, the Raiders want him to be a thumper in the back end of the
In
defense.
which
It should be that.
I don't mind that, but I just feel like every play don't have to be a thump. You know what I'm saying? And like you play a lot of snaps in football, so if you're going to play a lot of snaps, every tackle is not going to be a big hit. So that's what I feel like he comes in thinking that every play is going to be a big hit. Every hit is not. It's not going to be a big hit. I think he's a good tackler, but he don't need. I think that's why I say he need to change his style because we are in today's NFL that a lot of players get injured easily just from big hits alone. It's not like what it was back then. People get up and then you could just go back out there. You get hit big, it's concussion protocol, it's other injuries they look at, they go down the bottom, down the bottom. I think he still could play within himself, but every play is not going to be a huge hit.
I don't know if that's. I don't. I mean, listen. I'm not Jonathan Abram, but I do know that one thing the Raiders coaching staff wants is players that bring violence with them when they attack the ball, and that's what they're teaching their players, and more so, that's what they don't want to have to teach their players. Right? They want them already to be able to be bringing that type of anger and viciousness with them when they go after the ball, when they go after the ball carriers. I hear what you guys are saying about, oh, you got to save yourself and, you got to make sure you're on. I think what makes Jonathan Abram the number, the first round pick is that he's aggressive, is the way he plays, and he's a leader on top of all that. I think that it's the risk that you take. I mean, look at Carl Joseph last year, still just coming in like a torpedo with all the injuries that he had. If Abram can put it all together and continue to lay the wood, that's what this defense needs. So
Which
I understand what you guys are saying, but I would never ask a player to take the foot off the gas.
I'm not saying take the foot off the gas, but it's just some instance that I prefer a safety that could get turnovers, and then I'd rather have a safety that could give you turnovers than have a safety that have a wide receiver catch the ball for 20 yards and get a big hit and they still got a 20-yard gain. You see what I'm saying? So I just feel like I'd rather have a safety that could give me turnovers with the big hits instead of giving me a safety that gives up 20 yards for a 20-yard pass and still gives a big hit and it's still a positive yardage for the opposite team. So that's just where I'm at with it.
The inverse of that is, if he's going to let up the catch, you might as well make him pay for it, right? I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, you want a safety that can, that is Ronnie Lott, that can, knock your lights out and pick off, 65 interceptions in a season. I don't think Jonathan Abram is that guy, right? He's not a super ball hawk. He doesn't have fantastic ball skills. I think he's going to be, he's a player that can learn the position and cause some turnovers, but that's not his style of play. And I don't think that he's going to be an effective player by trying to make him something he's not. And, for all the people saying, oh, these hits, they're going to be penalized hits. That's just part of what you get when you have a guy who in that same game can, just decapitate a wide receiver legally and force the ball out when the ball's in the air and you have a collision. So, or better yet, the second time the wide receiver hears footsteps. I mean, it's a different game than it was in the 70s, but there's a lot of things that are still the same in football. People don't like getting their bell rung and knock the F out coming over the middle. That hasn't changed.
I'm not saying him to change. I just want him to be better and be more observant on certain things, knowing that you're coming off a serious injury that have you off the whole year. I just need him to be a little bit more cautious on how he lays the wood. I'm not saying to let up and not lay the wood. I want him to lay the wood. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't want him to re-injure himself. I just think, so like.
Sure.
Because if he re-injure himself, we go back to having Joyner and Demarius Randall. You can lay the wood, but it's just some plays. It don't have to be like that. I don't know. I just think every hit shouldn't have to be that way.
I don't know. I certainly couldn't see a.
I just want him to improve. I just don't want him to be considered just, Jonathan Abram is just a hitter, but he can't cover and can't get interceptions. I want him to be a full-rounded player. So if he wants to be a hitter, I don't mind that, but improve. Just don't be a hitter. Don't stay where you were at last year. Just improve on your coverage skills too. That's all I'm asking for.
Well, I think that we would all love that. I just don't see a defensive coach in the NFL or at any level saying, don't bring every single bit of yourself into every single hit. The whole concept of play smart, not hard. I don't think that, I don't see how that applies to a athlete that is so tuned to doing what he does best, which is be a demon on the defensive backfield and knock the crap out of people. So,
but we are. I think
we're going in circles. I think
we're just in a day and age of football where they thinking about player safety, and that's what I'm thinking about as well. We're not in a day and age where the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s where it was allowed. But Fierce Rate, I wanted to get to you. Jamal Adams is the same thing as Jonathan Abram, but the difference between Jonathan Abram and Jamal Adams has playmaking skills as a corner. He could lay to his and he could get interceptions and he could force fumbles. We have not seen that from Jonathan Abram because he laid the wood too much to a point that he ended up injuring himself in the Monday Night Football game. That's all I'm saying. If you're going to be a hitter, be all the way well-rounded. That's all I'm asking for.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Who remember the quote from John Madden? Don't know what quote. He has a lot of quotes. If he gets another season injury to be reckless, Gruden would get rid of him for sure. I don't know if Gruden would get rid of him, but he got at least play. He got at least play a half a season or something.
I'm looking at this play. I'm looking at this play where he gets injured in slow motion, and I'm trying to kind of pinpoint here.
Yeah, he ends up getting hurt after the hit. So once he falls down to the ground, that's when he tore his rotator cuff. I don't know if it was rotator cuff. It was something in the shoulder, though. I know that for sure.
So, I mean, I don't know where the recklessness is. I mean, regardless, we're kind of going in circles here.
Yeah, we're kind of going in circles. I just wanted to say that, see, when what made me question him about his not his playing style, but kind of reckless, is that I'm nervous at him at practice too because he goes. I haven't seen Fierce Raider. I have not seen him go halfway. And he's not well rounded. He's not a ball hawk, and he doesn't do turnovers because we have not seen that. So I don't think he is that. But I feel like with Jonathan Abram, is that if he can develop to be a ball hawk and make turnovers while making the hit, I am fine with that. I'm not going to be fine with just, oh, yeah, you're going to pay for the 20 yards, but it's still a first down and they're going to be in the red zone. I'm not with that. I disagree with that. I just think that, you're going to let them pay for it, but they still got the ball. Make them fumble or catch the interception. That's just where I'm at with it. So I play like hell when I tell you that's what Chucky says. All right, Enrique, your background is pretty loud. So I have to mute you real quick. Your background is pretty loud. Um,
I
let's
mean,
see.
yeah. So I mean, that's kind of yeah. We're on the same. I expect and hope for more from Abram. We've only seen a little bit, but who knows?
Yeah, I just hope to see. I just hope that he's fully healed to a point where he can still give out those hits. So he don't have to re-injure himself. Dan wasn't expecting all this talk, but my point only still unproven.
It's your fault, Chris. It's your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault. It's your fault, Chris, man. Oh my God. But I mean,
But it's a good listen. It's a good discussion, and I think it just kind of gives the overall. It adds to the excitement and nervousness of having all these young defensive backs because it could be that we have ourselves the second coming of the Legion of Boom, or two of these guys don't pan out and we're back to square one. Now I think that everyone sees that there is some talent there and that we can go ahead and build on this. But I mean, I think we're in a better spot than we have been with Garrett and Connolly. I think that I like Arnett as a prospect better than that. I mean, Enrique, what did you think about getting rid of Conley? I mean, they probably wouldn't have done that if they weren't confident in Mullen and maybe even Johnson, right?
Getting rid of Conley, I don't see that happening. Like, I actually like Conley. Like, it adds to our depth of corner because let's remember, corner is one of the toughest positions in football. And Darion said it best, where each player cannot take big hits. Like, you cannot be like too aggressive. I'll just put it that way. Like, you cannot be too
I
aggressive
don't
on the
mind him
field.
being too aggressive. I just want him to be a well-rounded safety. I mean, I just don't want him to be known for just a hard-hitting safety. I want him to be known for a well-rounded corner because by the end of his career, he could go into possibly he could be a Hall of Famer. Just don't know. We just don't know at the end of the day. But what was the question? What was you saying, Eli, for Enrique?
Oh, I was just kind of saying I was curious what he thought about, getting rid of Connolly and how do we stack up right now without Connolly and adding Arnett? I'm kind of, I think we're in a better spot right now.
Honestly, I think we're in a better spot too because Conley was getting beat. Conley was getting beat. He was trash. And I was kind of mad that he came out of Ohio State and him and Eli Apple did not pan out. I just didn't understand that. Because a lot of corners do come out of Ohio State and do pan out, but those two just didn't. I don't know what the hell was going on with them, but at the end of the day, I think we pan out better with Arnett than we do Conley.
True.
So with that being said, y'all, we are 5 more minutes left into this 2-hour show. Enrique and Eli, what are your final thoughts for this upcoming week for Raiders news? What's your final thoughts on this show?
Go ahead, Enrique. You go first.
Repeat that question, please. Right.
What's your final thoughts on the show as far as, anything Raiders? If you have anything to say, what's your final thoughts on this segment?
Well, there's really nothing much to say about it, but I'll just go through this. Like, I asked Darion this, and Eli, I'm gonna ask you now. I asked Darion about if we are thinking about cutting receivers because, in my opinion, we have a lot of receivers, and our weakest receiver, in my opinion, is Nelson Aguilar. Eli, what do you think about that?
We talked about that, and I don't, on paper, I think that it's up to Nelson Aguilar and Zay Jones. And from what I understand, Carr has a rapport with Zay Jones. They throw with each other. I think they live close to together. And Zay Jones was, a guy that kind of stepped in last year, so he has some familiarity with Carr already. Usually, what you carry like five or six wide receivers on the squad. So if you go through and you say you have Ruggs, you have Edwards, you have Tyrell Williams, you have Zay Jones,
Hunter Renfro?
Hunter Renfro. I mean, those are your five. And then I guess Nelson Aguilar would probably be, again, Zay Jones would probably be up against Nelson Aguilar as that fourth or fifth wide receiver. Now, that's if Edwards can be the type of player which we all expect him to be. So Nelson Aguilar might be the guy, the one, holding the short straw, as it were, at the end of the day. So I do think that he's probably the least likely, maybe, if that's a way to put it, he's probably the least likely to make this starting squad out of all of those guys. But again, the rookies have to bring it in camp and show what they can do.
I think Aguilar is going to be on the team, but I think he's not going to be put under the wide receiver depth. With his speed, I think he's going to help out Dwayne Harris in punts and kick returns. I think we need athleticism at that position. I don't think, he's going to be at the. Don't get me wrong. Nelson Aguilar had one good year with the Eagles, and that was a Super Bowl year. He had one good year with them. I mean, after that, it just fell apart. And you got to think about it. Look at the quarterbacks Aguilar had to go up. He had a half of Carson Wentz. He had a half of Nick Foles for the Super Bowl run. And then he had Josh McCown last year in the playoffs because Carson Wentz got hurt again. So technically, within the 3 years he's been there, he had three different quarterbacks throwing to. So I feel like when you going to go with Aguilar, you got to put him at the kick or punt returns just to get his confidence back. Help him out with Dwayne Harris. Dwayne Harris has been hurt with us when it comes to special teams. He might help out being a speedster. But I think it's going to be Zay Jones. It's going to be Zay Jones, Hunter Renfro, Tyrell Williams, Henry Ruggs, and Brian Edwards. That's my five that's going to be on the depth chart. And then you put Nelson Aguilar in that kick and punt return depth chart just to keep him on the field in some instance. So, Eli, what's your final take?
My final take is that, I just hope that everything kind of progresses on the way that, on the good end of this whole pandemic. I hope everyone stays safe, and I hope that we see some sports pretty soon. I know that, for one, I am really bumming out without it. So hopefully that can get remedied soon, and the Raiders and the rest of the NFL can get this season started on time.
And I have to agree. My final take is not really much. I just want to let y'all know that when it comes to Raiders football on Madden, I'll be going live on the channel on Facebook, going live doing some Raiders games through NFL Madden 2020. And we're going to go from there. Just keep a lookout every single day that we'll be going live, talking Raiders. Whatever news comes out, we're going to make sure we're the first ones to break it, even if it's live or it's a video. So just make sure everybody's staying safe. Things are kind of turning around with this pandemic. Hopefully things will get more positive than negative with this. So thank y'all for tuning in to another live show. I am Darion. We have Enrique and Eli here for another Las Vegas Raiders show. Thank y'all for tuning in. Just win, baby. Let's go Raiders.